Now, there we go. All right, well, let's keep rolling. Our goals for our time together today, first and foremost, we want to identify ways to be intentional about creating the conditions to effectively coach and support the educators in our districts, especially understanding some of the nuances and challenges of the times and the landscape in which we are all working in. Secondly, we want to start to lay the foundation for building that community of practice that supports both our individual growth and our collective growth as a network. So the way our roadmap is kind of laid out for our time together this afternoon, we've done some welcoming and introductions. We'll do a round of meeting the team so you get to know each other a little bit more. We're going to talk about setting the conditions. So what does it look like to actually set those conditions in your coaching work? We'll do a brief high-level team consultancy. So no worries, there was nothing that you needed to prep or come with today. And then we'll dig into some next steps. So we're going to start with a mix and mingle, a digital mix and mingle. So I'm going to send you into breakout rooms for 2 minutes. And so each partner will have 1 minute to share, and we're going to do 3 different rounds. So you'll have talked to 3 different people by the time we're finished with our digital mix and mingle. And so our first prompt when you go into this first round of breakouts is you all are going to share about the fashion tragedy that you rocked proudly growing up, right? So the thing that, like, when you look back at those pictures, you're like, you know what? I definitely do not want anybody getting a hold of this. What is the fashion tragedy that you rocked very proudly growing up? And I, Chris, right now am not seeing my breakout rooms as an option. Under more. Do you see it on your end?
I do not.
It looks like it potentially may not be an option or a setting right now. Okay, we're going to try to figure that out. But while we're doing that, I don't want to slow the row of our boat. So what we'll do is, because we're relatively small right now, let's drop it into the chat, and then we'll have a few people unmute and share a little bit about their fashion tragedy. So what fashion tragedy did you rock proudly growing up? Drop it into the chat, and then we'll hear from a few folks. Big bangs and wings in my hair. Oh my gosh, Donna, I need a picture. Thank you for that visual. Pin rolling the cuffs of your pants. I definitely can envision that. Big hair for Wendy, big hair for Kim. Tight rolling jeans. You had a flat top and a perm in the back, Chris. Y'all, everybody's homework is going to be to bring photos of the things you're describing, because I just need to see it. Terry cloth outfits, Kelly. Yes, I mean, well, when they were the thing, right? Bangs covering the whole forehead, bell bottoms, high hair, big bangs. Christina, I thought I looked normal. I love it. I went through this period of like, when I was a teenager, like everything was mesh. I just had like I had like mesh shirts and like mesh like gloves that my fingers went through, and a lot of mesh. Leg warmers. Yep. Love those, Rebecca. Funny about how many of us were engaging in like the crazy, like the really big hair. And now I think there's a lot of, like, when you think about what's in or what you see all the time, everybody's hair is like super sleek a lot now. Oh, jelly shoes. I forgot about those, Lisa. Wore a lot of black. Yeah. I still kind of have a tendency to be drawn to the darker colors and the black colors. Yeah, for sure. Love these. All right, y'all, we're going to go to round 2. Chris, I think that what may have happened is that there's not a breakout room setting, because it's not an option in any of my panels as a host. So we can continue to brainstorm that. But round 2, y'all, share our current coaching success and what contributed to that success. Share a current coaching success and what do you think has contributed to that success? So you can drop a couple of thoughts in the chat, and then why don't we just open up for a few folks to unmute and share aloud. Rebecca, your teachers' areas of growth and their needs first semester are now areas of strength. Listen, it doesn't get much better than that, right? To be able to see the tangible return and the results on those things that you're coaching around. Just return to work after being gone for 3.5 months. I know you won't start coaching until March. I know you shared that with me directly, but I appreciate you being here to just think about honing your and building your practice. So that in and of itself is a success for sure. Teacher glowed in an area that we're working on. Love that, Susan. Every session has been positive. Having that culture of like just believing in the power of coaching and that willingness and that buy-in is so important. I love these. PLC teams are practically running themselves. Ooh, that's awesome, Rebecca. Christine is working on how to collaboratively create opportunities for students to share and analyze work. She created a rubric. You modeled how to use the rubric, and then she executed the model. Christina, do you mind sharing a little bit more about that aloud? That's really interesting.
Sure. Do you want a minute? So sorry.
Don't worry.
So that's so she's an English teacher. She wanted students to pretty much, it really came down to she wanted students to actually reread and edit their work, but she also wanted them to peer edit because the peer editing wasn't working. So I heard her collaborating, made that rubric. Like, what does it sound like? What do you want your students to have to get to? So what is the meat of the rubric? And she already had an anchor chart of how she wanted the students to write. So we made the rubric based off the anchor chart. And then I just took the rubric and thought of how I envisioned it, modeled that, and then asked her, which one of those pieces flow with you? Which one, do you feel that works your style? And so she took the pieces that worked from her, then she made it herself, and she executed the next day. So, but this was something I think what made it really powerful and meaningful is that this is something she chose to work on and she identified it. So she was able to name it. She is a teacher of 10 years. But she always felt that was something that she could never get her kids to get to. So some great things. I was happy that she saw the benefit in our conversations.
Yeah, that's wonderful. And I think take the credit for creating the conditions for that buy-in to be there and for recognizing the need for that individual teacher to have the opportunity to kind of co-investigate and co-create what that action step looked like for you. So that's a really job well done there. And kudos to you. Our final round, you all, and I appreciate you bearing with us in the absence of the breakout rooms. Our third prompt is share a current coaching challenge, right? And so for as well as it sounds like things are going for many of us, we know that there are always going to be some of those bumps in the road or things to work through. What's a current challenge that's top of mind for you right now? Looking at some of the other shares in the chat around successes. We love to see teachers coming off those improvement plans. A laugh, right? Miranda, yes, celebrate the small success, but that's also a big one, right? When someone is resistant, getting them to kind of shed a layer of that barrier is so, so important. And that's definitely a success. Lisa, access testing. I'm sorry that's proving to be challenging. Is that impeding your schedule, your coaching schedule?
It's so we have specifically a pen. There are 265 Ls, and each student needs to take a total of 4 tests. So just scheduling that it's a bear. There's no good way to do it.
Yep, yep. I totally get that. And sometimes the only option is to just like recognize that like this is the current reality and like it will shift. How do you push through that? And what's in your locus of control too, right? Like not letting all the things that are outside of your locus of control negatively impact you. Testing seems to be causing campuses to change their schedules. It sounds like we're all kind of like, look, both Lisas are like being, are feeling really burdened by the testing thing. Being able to help a teacher align their lessons to standards. Yeah, to content where I'm not an expert. Absolutely. You want to fall back on those good practices, but you also want to show up and like feel meaningful and like you're giving support that's meeting them where they are, Christina. Appreciate you being vulnerable about that. Kelly has a new teacher that's struggling in every area, and there doesn't seem to be much follow through when you're not actually there. Yeah, that's tough. What's the highest leverage thing to tackle? How do you get them invested in actually implementate the implementation piece? Feeling lost behind, like you can't contribute enough after being out. It's definitely a reality. Can assure you that you can contribute on it, that you're an asset. Just the timing of the year. People are delicate. Yeah. Coaching sessions tend to tread carefully and be more positive amongst the chaos. Definitely important, Rebecca. People's plates are overflowing right now. High teacher need, no follow through on her end. So it sounds like a lot of some of the challenges are very similar in terms of some of like those external things that impact our ability to meet, but then also those environmental or just like arc of the school year factors that impact like the mindset, right, of the people that we're coaching and the extent to which we can really kind of continue to push. And that's something that we're going to continue to talk about and brainstorm and work through together. So we're going to keep going past this part. Appreciate y'all again bearing with us and being so vulnerable and sharing openly. All right. So our kickoff conversation, right, to kind of just like establish some baseline and set some guardrails, would love to hear from you all around two things. One, what does it look like to build the relationships with those that you coach and support? A lot of you all, when you shared some of your successes, mentioned seeing just like the buy-in or the disposition of the teacher shift or become more positive. You also talked about like seeing them actually tangibly accomplish those concrete goals that you've set for them. But we know that at the foundation of that relationship has to be there. So what is the work? What are those actionable things that you all are doing to be intentional about cultivating those relationships? The second question is, what are you noticing in terms of teacher support and needs this year, right? Because like the past couple of years, we've seen the climate, the landscape continue to evolve and change, and needs are shifting. So what are you seeing this year that's really standing out to you? Let's just come off mute and share, and you can answer or respond to either one of these prompts.
So just to start off, most of my middle school and high school EL teacher teams are new as of last year, and I'm still getting like new people in. So like I have been trying to be like as supportive as possible. I approach everything with like a growth mindset. If I can't like solve a teacher's problem, I try to connect them with people who can help them out. Like one teacher I wrote has some issue with like classroom management, but like it's really just the rapport with the students. So I connected her with our behavior coaches to help her out.
Yeah, I think that was a really like thinking about in our role as coaches and how we actually also serve as a liaison to give teachers access to the other resources that exist beyond us, and not feeling like we have to have all the answers or be the expert on everything that can come up is really important, Lisa. Thank you for sharing that. What else?
I think for me, oh, sorry.
Who just came off mute? Was that Erica?
It was not, but I will go for sure.
I think the first question, what does it look like to build the relationships and give support? I think it's always starting on that positive note and making sure that teachers really know that you are there to help and support, and making sure that you're giving them good, kind feedback at the very beginning, and kind of paving that way for the small wins so that you can make the big wins.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Erica.
I would agree with Erica. I think we at our school, we're a new school, and we have 3 teachers in the same grade level, same position. Everybody else is new to their position or grade level or district. So the first month, at least, of school was just me visiting teachers, and our conversations were personal conversations, me getting to know them getting to know me showing up in the classroom just to support, help, work with students. Nothing real formal or official, because I wanted them to feel comfortable with me, especially when I started coming in and talking about their practice, because that's very personal to teachers.
Yeah, absolutely. Taking that stance as like a learner and recognizing, because I think also implicit what you just said, Kelly, was that like we're assuming the best of everyone. I know that when we see teachers like struggling or not necessarily showing up or meeting the mark, that it can be easy to become frustrated by that, because kids, right? Like it's urgent, but also being able to pause and to just like acknowledge that like your practice is something that you care about. I'm going to assume that you care about your practice, and that my work here with you is to learn about where you are and then to help kind of bridge the gap around where you are and where you desire to be.
I'm going to agree with what Kelly said too. Before we even started offering the coaching, we took a while to get to know the teachers here in Rio Grande. We're each assigned to multiple campuses, and so we had a lot of teachers to build relationships with, and we always made sure to let them know that we were here to support them. And now recently we've been starting with our coaching sessions, but it took a while to build that relationship with the teachers.
Yeah, absolutely, Lisa. It takes a while, especially when you have a larger caseload too. And so I think sometimes we can feel urgent, and when we see the task in front of us and when we know that we have a limited amount of time, it's easy to be like, all right, I got to hit the ground running. I got to jump right into this stuff. But give yourself some grace as a coach, and also still not sacrifice the importance of building that rapport genuinely so that you can really make real progress. Any additional thoughts, especially around need? What needs are we seeing? And how might they differ from what you may have seen typically or in the past?
I have to say, not necessarily differently. The need needs to be restated in words of how to help the teacher. So when the teacher feels overwhelmed, they have to do this documentation and this documentation, and they have to do this test and they have to do that test. We're going to stop, the kids are going to be, we're at the high school, kids are going to be gone. You're going to have to redo your lesson plans. So there's a lot of, after being in education for a good while, I don't see it as a new, I just see it as a new wording. So the work that you do with them, you just have to use their wording of what's stressing them at that moment. Why are your students not meeting the success criteria that you would like? Oh, well, they're gone. They have to test. They don't turn in. They don't come to school. So all of the reasons why has always been there. We just have to name it differently. So I feel like that's kind of because I am getting to the point of being 40, and I know that some people are like, oh, that's young, but now there's a big, there is that 15-year gap. And I have a teacher that has come back from, he has a 15-year gap from the last time he taught, and he taught for 15 years before, then he had a 15-year gap, and now he's back, and he is just amazed about the change of the students. So I took that through my eyes as well. There's a gap of thoughts and how our thoughts move with the different generations. So I always just take it upon myself of how is this person perceiving the tasks that have always been there, but how do they perceive the task? And then making sure, that the work that we do together identifies how it will alleviate their task. I don't have a script. I'm not saying it's perfect, but that's kind of where my mind has been this year.
Yeah. Yeah. That's really, really insightful, Christina. And I think, and that takes time too. I think what you're alluding to it in the work that it takes for you to be able to kind of individualize and tailor and recognize like where those gaps are in experience and all the different factors that come in for everyone that you're supporting really does take time, but it's still that level of intentionality is definitely critical.
One of the needs I'm seeing on my campus is we have a lot of alt cert and emergency certified. And so not being in a classroom, have never been in a classroom, understanding the way the lesson cycle would be and the behaviors, and there's just a different support needed for them because they didn't do the student teaching piece.
Yeah. That's big, Tara. Right. And like, how do we like accelerate, right? Like the acclimation period for them, without overwhelming them as well. Yeah. What else? What else are y'all doing in terms of relationship building also, or what are you seeing as far as needs?
Here in, I don't know if I just interrupted someone, sorry.
You didn't, it's okay.
Okay. I think here in Rio Grande, I think there's a high level of maybe, is frustration the right word? Maybe, I think it is the right word, frustration, because there is a lot going on this year. And we have the new test here in the state of Texas. We have at our district 3 new curriculums that needed to be learned and implemented. And then it's just, I think that the teachers are feeling overwhelmed. They have a lot to do. And so we just need to make sure that, we can support their needs and listen to them because they are feeling overwhelmed.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, when I hear you say that, I think I have been working with a lot of coaches that are looking to build their capacity around like going off script, right? And so like when I notice in the conversation or in the meeting that the teacher burst into tears, or that they're just like not in the headspace to receive the feedback, what does it look like for me to be able to adapt and adjust in the moment and still provide them with some meaningful support? Like whether that's talking about self-care, whether that's talking about ways for them to manage their workload or support them in other areas that still impact their practice, but also allow them to feel seen and heard based on where they are. Any other thoughts here around relationships or needs?
Yeah, I appreciate you mentioning a little bit about self-care because I think that is a critical piece, especially this time of year as we're heading into kind of what we would say is that most stressful with statewide tests coming up. And as you go into whether it's a PLC or one of those one-to-one coaching opportunities, start off with just a little bit of, that a self-care strategy. We may not be doctors, we may not be, dietitians or the just workout specimens, but can we, offer some kind of support in regards to that self-care, that social emotional piece to really support their personal life? Because in the conversations that I'm having across our NIC, our personal and professional balance teeter-totter is professional up here, and we forget about our personal life. And that is a real critical piece.
Yeah, absolutely. We're coaching people. We're not, right? Like we have to recognize and develop them as practitioners, but they are also people. All right, let's keep rolling. I appreciate again, you all. We're being flexible with the fact that breakout rooms are not functioning right now. I think it's probably just a quick Zoom does all these updates. And so for this session, we're bearing through and having a larger group conversation around some of these points. But what I'm going to ask you to do right now is I'm actually going to ask you to kind of stop and jot. We're thinking about setting the conditions. And so I want you to actually grab hold of one coaching partnership that you have right now or that you've had this year. And I want you to think back to the beginning of that partnership and as you were establishing it. What are the actionable things, right? One step, multi-steps that you did to set the conditions for positive coaching experiences in the current context and realities in your district. So think about an actual teacher. What are some of the specific actions that you used to set the conditions for a positive coaching experience? Jot a few of those things down. And what I'm going to ask you to do, let's take about 3 minutes right now and just jot some of those down. And as you're jotting them down, what you can do actually, I'd like for you to put a few of those ideas, type them into your chat box, but do not hit enter. So type them into your chat box, but do not submit them by hitting enter just yet. We're typing in just a few of those things, and it's okay, Nora hit enter, but we're not hitting enter just yet. I love that one, Nora, that was great.
I was thinking I was typing in a little word, like, and I was like, I should have, sorry.
Okay. It's all right.
And I think when you press enter to go down to the next line, it actually sends it.
It does. You have to hit control enter in order for it to go to the next line and not either control or command enter for it to not submit it. All right, I'm gonna count us down and we're gonna hit enter. So make sure you have at least one of those actions in your typed into your chat box. And when I say go, we're gonna press enter. So it's 3, 2, 1, and go. You can submit your things. All right, so I see a few things populating in, always doing what I said I would do. Showing up. Go ahead and read through some of the actions that we've shared here. What we just did is called a chat waterfall. I'm sure you all have seen that before. If you have anybody that's still teaching virtually in your districts, it's a great strategy to like engage and get multiple perspectives, but also make sure that students, even our adult learners, aren't just kind of reiterating what they've seen their peers say. But look through what we shared here collectively as a group. And I'd love for you to just unmute and share, is there anything here that resonates? Are there any trends that you see? And also, is there anything here that you'd be interested in incorporating into your practice that you may not have done yet? So what resonates? What trends do you see? What might you try as a result of what you see here?
I didn't put this in mind, but I see somebody said validating the teacher and his or her work. I think Lorena said that. And I agree. I think that's something I try to do, is always validate where they're coming from, what they're thinking, what they're feeling, what they're seeing, because if we're not validating their own experience, then they're not going to listen to anything else we say.
Absolutely, Kelly, right? If you can't see and hear me, right? If I'm sharing and then you're coming back with something completely different, I don't feel like that feels very compliance driven, right? I need to feel seen and heard. I love that. What else?
Yeah, and I think also like being vulnerable and being like showing them like the struggles that sometimes that they're facing, you faced them yourself when you were in their shoes, and just showing that vulnerability creates that safe environment, and that we're in the same place where you're here to help us and move forward. It's not judgmental. But again, going to that part that, what, at me as a teacher, that happened to me, or just showing being vulnerable. I think that takes you to higher places with that person.
Absolutely, Nora. Absolutely. We know that there's sometimes that unspoken or sometimes spoken, right? Like tension or apprehension around your role as a coach, right? Like, are you here to evaluate me? Are you here to judge me? Are you here to determine whether or not I'm doing my job well enough to keep it? And so I think if you can position yourselves in that vulnerable way, that really does go a long way in terms of building that authentic relationship.
I think a trend that I see in a lot of the answers is helping teachers to come up with their own growth points instead of telling them what their growth point is, like helping them to see what it should be.
Yeah, being facilitative in our practice, but also co-creating where we're going, right? That's so important because I think that does a few things. It, one, acknowledges and validates the extent to which they actually are reflective and have an understanding of their own gaps and the places where they need to grow. But then again, you're not always going to be there. And so if I can say, you know what, me and Kelly, we sat down and we decided that I need to work on increasing student talk in my classroom because I also value that and I want to hear more student voice in my classroom, then that's something that I'm a lot more likely to be thinking about intentionally and working on all the time, even in the absence of my coach, or even on those weeks where I'm not having an obs and feedback meeting.
Yeah, one of the things that stood out to me was being present and visibility. If we're not present, then coaching becomes an event. But if we are visible and present on a regular basis, coaching becomes a cycle. Then the two-way, communication between the educator and the coach and the educator becomes a partnership and a true collaboration. I would like to spotlight Miranda here. She posted about leaving positive notes for teachers. I cannot tell you how far that goes to leave a personalized little thank you note and just some words of encouragement and praise of what you saw while you were in there. I've been to a number of classrooms where those little thank you notes are still on the teacher's desk weeks after I have, dropped a note from an observation. Emails, they're okay, but that's just a way to, it takes a little bit of that personalization off. So just, showing your gratitude for their work with a personalized note is powerful.
Yeah.
Chris, at our school, even though we're a high school, you can go walk into teachers' rooms and they have posted them somewhere around their desk where we have left nice notes, and they could have been from years ago. But they still have them posted because our note still looks the same. So it's kind of like a contest about who can get the most notes.
Yeah. And it's a reminder too, right? Like, yes, it's like, of course, like the bragging rights, but that reminder for self that like there are things that I'm doing well, or on those really hard days where it feels like nothing went the way that I planned or intended for it to go. It's so nice to have just that like physical, tangible reminder that I got this. I can do this, and I know what I'm doing. I want to stamp Susan thought around welcoming feedback. I think that being able to Nora's point, be vulnerable, but to also invite feedback on the process. What could I do to better support you? How can I structure this meeting so that it feels very meaningful for you? What are the opportunities for me to grow as a coach from your perspective, and how are you experiencing my coaching? Is I think just goes so far, and it's not always easy to do. But I think when you really honestly ask for and engage with the input of those that you're coaching, you, one, demonstrate and model for them the importance of being coachable and being able to receive feedback. But then when you take it a step further and actually take that feedback and make adjustments based off of the feedback that you've given. And so when we come back next week and I say, I need a little bit more processing time, and you've shared some notes with me ahead of time so that I can sit with the data or sit with the evidence a little bit more before we have to talk about it, before I have to share my reflections with you, I know that you heard me and I know that you actually care about the extent to which I can sit in this meeting and feel productive and feel like this is meaningful. So I think that's huge. Susan, I don't know if you want to come off mute and say anything else about that process of just welcoming feedback on coaching?
Well, I mean, what you said is exactly what I was thinking. Teachers know that they can tell me no, like when, and it's not no, we're not meeting, but it's no, as in, does this feel authentic to you? Is this something that you can do? And so when they do say no, then it's like, okay, so how can we make it specifically for you? And I had a teacher this morning for a coaching meeting, and we were doing reflections about our work for, or her work for this last week. And so she was thinking, and I said, well, do you want me to give you more think time and you just fill it in later? And she said, no, I work best when you're with me. And so she wanted to do that with me there. So every teacher is different, but just having that open communication to where they can say, yes, I agree, or no, I don't. This is how it would be me. And so if we can make it impactful for the teachers, then it's going to be impactful to the students. And if they don't connect it, the students are definitely not going to connect it. So that's just my goal.
I love that, Susan. Thank you. I appreciate, one, you gave choice, right? And so not only did you invite feedback, but then you also provided choice. Again, I have an opportunity to actually co-create my coaching experience. And I love that parallel around students, right? There's like so much of our coaching work that's parallel to what we want teachers to do with kids. We want teachers to be able to give kids choice. We want teachers to use student voice and give students agency in their classrooms. So why do we not take that same approach with them as adult learners? Because at the end of the day, learners are learners, right? I think we often discern between students and adult learners, but at the end of the day, processing and being able to apply, it's the same across the human brain. And so I really love thinking about how we can engage in such a way that we can then draw parallels around how we want teachers to engage and give that agency to students. Such great ideas here. Any other final thoughts or takeaways around just some of those steps that we take to set the conditions for positive coaching experiences?
I wanted to highlight one more thing, and I think Wendy said it, but just the follow through with what I said I would do. If I'm going to be meeting with a teacher, next week, and they're going to do something, and I said I would have this, I need to make sure that I come prepared for what I said I was going to do. So I think that's really important because we all get so busy. And I think I put a comment in here before about, like I'm frustrated with, maybe frustrated is not the right word. I'm struggling working with a teacher because this teacher doesn't have follow through. And imagine how they would feel if I didn't have the follow through and I'm supposed to be the one supporting them.
Absolutely. Absolutely, Kelly. So important. And
Yeah,
it's
if I may,
small
sorry.
things, right? Sorry. So sometimes it's even like those really small things like, oh, I said I was going to send this email or share this resource and I forget to do it. Sometimes that's just enough to negatively impact their buy-in or my credibility or our credibility, right?
Absolutely. That credibility is huge.
Kia, just a small thing, and we often talk about this in our coaching for change training, and the environmental piece is making sure that the atmosphere is warm, it's comforting. The other part is minor, but it's big, is the fact that there's not a barrier between you and the person that you're coaching. So for example, you're sitting on one side of the desk and they're sitting on the other. There's a barrier in between you. Going around to the other side of the desk, if the person that you are coaching is comfortable in that aspect, and being right there with them and engaged in the conversation that's taking place.
Yeah, absolutely, Chris. Thank you for sharing that. Any other thoughts?
Just this morning, I was sitting with a group of teachers, and one of the teachers was explaining the activities that he has planned for next week. And I was just really impressed by them. So right before I logged into this meeting, I sent him an email just letting him know that the effort behind his planning is evident with those activities that he's, planning to incorporate next week. But then I jotted down a note because I sent an email and I think that a thank you for sharing that with me. Just that handwritten note, like Chris said, would be maybe a little more meaningful. So I'm taking that with me. Don't just send emails, send those little notes too. They mean a lot. They're meaningful. So thank you for that suggestion.
Yeah.
and Lisa, and this is something as a former HR director, I mean, we're extremely busy with the coaching, with everything that we are doing. As HR director, I carved out 45 minutes to an hour a week when I was HR director on Thursdays, and I just handwrote notes to our staff members. And some of the staff members that are on this call right now received them as the HR director, because I wanted to personally thank them. Because as an HR director, when I went into the buildings, I had no idea, but I was on a timer for people to time me on how fast I got in and how fast I got out and who was getting in trouble. And so to being a relational leader as I am, that really hurt. So I tried to change the mindset a bit, and the letters go a long ways.
Yeah. Thanks, Chris. All right, y'all, we're going to keep rolling. I, again, really appreciate that everybody's being flexible with us having this conversation, whole group. Thank you so much, Christina, for sharing that resource. Christina just dropped a link into the chat to scripting anchor conversations. So that's there for you. I suggest everybody pull it up and save it or bookmark it so you can check it out. Christina, did you want to say anything about the resource?
When you click on that link, if you scroll at the bottom, you don't have to buy the book, but if you scroll at the bottom, it'll say next post, and it'll actually go through what every letter stands for. It's just the book I'm listening to right now, and she definitely does a good, or they do a nice job of being able to name how to make that conversation, or just like if you're going to actually leave an email, how to script it and how to make it specific to what you are trying to show appreciation for. What are they doing exactly? So it's helped me being able to script very quickly, but also be intentional. So maybe it'll help somebody.
Yeah, I think that that's great. Thank you. That's what we're here to do, is share those resources. So we're gonna just be flexible with this kind of last portion of the meeting. And so you all would have been in breakout rooms and having more, had a few question stems to kind of guide some conversation with one another. Instead of doing a reintroduction and sharing contact information, we'll make sure we're going to compile some email contact lists and share those with you anyway, and so that you'll have access to coaches across the network and their emails. And as we continue to meet, as you all can organically and informally create opportunities to connect and collaborate and to share. The 3 discussion topics that we have for you all to dig into in your breakout rooms, if you had been in them, was 1, as a coach, what are you doing this year that is working? And so you all shared a lot of successes. The goal of that conversation would be to kind of go to the what's under the hood of those successes, right? Like, what are you doing? What are your action steps that are contributing to those things that you're seeing go well? So we talk about those teachers that are coming off plans. We're talking about those teachers that are transitioning areas of development or grows into glows and areas of strength. What are you doing to support that? Secondly, how are you supporting implementation effectively? And so we have a combination of core districts, right? People that have been engaging in coaching for change and is coaching the nuances of our coaching model and framework for many, many years. Some of us may be in year 2 of implementing our framework, coaching for change, right? Outside of the work that you're doing in your coaching meetings, what are you doing systems-wide, district-wide, to really support implementation and streamline implementation of coaching practice in our model? And then the third one is other. And so you could pose your own question to the group. And so to make sure that I know we're scheduled until 2:00, right, Chris? So what I'm going to have you do right now is we're just going to take the next 5 minutes. You can go off camera if you'd like, and jot down a couple of notes or thoughts in response to one of these prompts. So as a coach, what are you doing this year that's working? Secondly, how are you supporting implementation across your district of coaching for change? Thirdly, if there's another question that you'd like to add here, then you can pose that question to the group. The way we'll do this is we'll hear from, I'm going to use my randomizer to call on probably 5 or 6 people to share. And then I'll ask you those people that don't share, to share your thoughts in the chat. And what we'll do is we'll save the chat and we'll share this back out so that you'll have a couple of things we'll do. We'll make sure you have access to some of the things that people are doing that are working, some of the things that people are doing to support implementation, and then any of those questions that may not get posed to the group today, but they get shared in the chat, we'll make sure we follow up on those the next time that we come back together. Thanks everybody for being flexible. I know I'm speaking a lot. So your next 5 minutes, you're crafting a response to one of these. You'll put it, I'll call on a few folks to share. And if you're not somebody that shares, then you're going to add your thoughts into the chat, your question or your comment into the chat. Thanks for coming, Kelly. Good luck with your coaching meeting. Little less than 2 minutes. All right, we're gonna come back together in a few seconds. All right. So would love to, I'm going to use my randomizer to select some folks to share. And it looks like our first person is Dana. Dana, are you available to share?
I am. I'm so sorry. I just stepped back in. I grabbed a quick bite to eat. What's working? I'm going to talk from more of a district level and individual level, but I feel like what's working for our district is the partnership that we have a district partner that develops the framework. And we've had a lot of coaching around the framework and the teacher actions and how to collect the data that we see in the classrooms. And I really feel like the coaches are feeling a lot more supported in that area. So that's what I feel like is working.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you so much, Dana. Glad to hear that. All right, next we've got Miranda.
So for me, it was the resistant teachers that I allowed them to choose their area of growth, with a little bit of guiding questions. And with that, they've been more receptive and open about their practice, and our coaching meetings have been more positive with them being able to say what they want to do.
Love that. Give them that agency, and that is going to increase the buy-in. I love that. I feel like that's a kind of recurring theme of some of the things y'all have been sharing today. All right, next we have Lorena.
Hello, good afternoon. So for me, it's being available for teachers whenever they request or require or ask for the support, being available and being transparent with them.
Yeah, I really love that. And I think it's something that we may take for granted, right? Like, of course, we're going to create an observation schedule, we'll have our meetings, but like just being accessible and being available outside of those times, or when that teacher emerges with the need, goes a really long way in terms of setting those conditions and making sure that that trust is built and sustained between you all. All right, Erica Falcon.
I'm going to go ahead and piggyback on that, on the being available for the teachers, like setting, yes, we do have our scheduled times, but when we become available for them. And also something that has worked for us is that we started off with the new teachers. And I guess when other teachers started hearing about the positive in it, they started requesting for us to visit them. So that's something that's working for us.
That's great. Absolutely. Right. And that in and of itself helps you really get that buy-in and sustain it. When they're hungry for it, for the support. Oh, look, somebody's drawing on the screen. That's
me.
Is it Kim?
It's me. Oh my gosh. It's out of control here. Sorry.
Yep. Did anyone answer before I hit the randomizer? Did anybody talk or reflect on how you're supporting implementation?
I did.
Yeah, I'd love to hear.
So I teach, or I coach my EL teachers from K to 12. Yeah. And our K through 2 teachers are working with implementation of a new curriculum. Yeah. So what we did is over the summer, the teachers did a lot of work with the new curriculum, and they created supplemental materials for themselves. And then we've just been having ongoing conversations in our PLCs once a month with how that implementation is going. And it's been like, it's not perfect, but it's nice that everybody gets a chance to reflect on what they're doing in the classroom and like figure out, how the new curriculum is going to go in future years.
Yeah, absolutely. Sometimes just creating that space is so critical to just understand what the lived experiences are. Because I think there's always plans, right? And how we think things will go, but it's important to really be able to juxtapose those plans against what's actually happening in our progress. When I think about our network, I think that's a really great kind of parallel and way for us to think about how are we making sure that we are coaching with fidelity across the network and that we are implementing the levers of the work and pausing and stepping back to assess that. So important to do. All right, I'm going to hit my randomizer again. Oh, it picked Lisa, but Lisa just shared. One step ahead. Susan.
On mine, I'll piggyback off of the support we were doing, work through the PLCs and things like that. And then also checking in on my coaches or coachees, sorry, that have been taken off the cycle.
Yeah.
So even though we're no longer having those official meetings, just stopping by between class periods, how's it going? You know, those kind of things, that seems to continue with the support, and just trying to fine tune everything.
Yeah, that's really important, right? Like, okay, maybe I am not formally coaching you right now. Maybe this isn't a part of the evaluation system or what's required, but that additional support to just, I care about your ability to feel positioned to deliver high quality instruction. I care about that, regardless of how it fits into some of the structures. Really love that. Anybody else want to share, come off mute and share before I ask anybody who didn't share, who'd rather just share, drop some thoughts into the chat. Would anybody else like to just unmute and share?
Yeah, I would like to ask go ahead.
Sorry, Chris. Something that's working for me this year is before I leave, and if I say I'm going to visit a teacher, I'll put it on my calendar and invite them. So it's not where, oh, I'm busy, I can't. But when somebody asks, I'm like, no, I have this chunk of time, they're expecting me, I'm going to be there. So that's made me be more intentional about, instead of going, okay, I'll stop by next week or I'll get my walkthrough in before we meet again. It's more intentional. They know I'm coming. That's my time. And when people look at my calendar, they see that I'm not available to take up for something else.
Yeah.
I'm going to kind of also say what Wendy said, that I've been living and dying by my calendar more than ever this year, and like holding it more sacred than I used to, in that you do get caught up in somebody like, hey, can you stop by? Hey, can you stop by? But I could waste a lot of, not waste, but you spend a lot of time doing those things and time gets away. So I'm trying really hard to set everything in my calendar and stick to it so that I'm reliable and consistent. And like Wendy said, so that it's intentional time.
Yeah, absolutely, Erica. That I think is important. Kim knows I am ridiculously insane about my calendar. And I think one, like for your own personal accountability, but then it also allows you kind of like bigger picture to also see, like sometimes I'll go back and I'll look like, where did I spend my time this week or where did I spend my time this month, to make sure that it's aligned to my priorities, right? And so like if I'm very intentional about putting those high leverage actions and tasks and meetings on my calendar, I can really, really see, am I spending my time doing the things that are actually going to have drive the highest leverage performance, output, return, in my work. And so sometimes the answer to that is no, like you need to recalibrate here or re-strategize. All right.
Yeah, I think that's a critical part.
Sorry, go ahead.
That you spoke about adding even your own personal moments into your calendar. That's important because our family first, and we have to have those moments and block those times out to make sure that we are at a basketball game or at a rehearsal or whatever it may be. Our children and our spouses, they need us, so that's important to have those on the calendar too. The one question that I was going to ask is, because we've got folks that have been a part of our network since the onset of 2017, and we've got some folks that are taking part in the chat today that are brand new over this last year. So from a core district, whether it's Gainesville, Decatur, Colonial, or Marion, can you all speak on the growth that you have made as a coach over the years, and just kind of, share some, what things could, how you can progress into the future as a coach? Because I know we want to make all the changes right now, and sometimes, things take time. So if I can ask that question, Kia, and I apologize for taking us off script a little bit.
No worries, that's fine.
I think the word for me totally is consistency. Like entering into a coaching session prepared over and over and over again with leading questions, letting teachers reflect on their growth and their opportunity. And now they're so used to me coming in and us having those conversations that it's so easy. And they kind of identify it before I even come in, because they know what I'm going to ask and how I'm going to ask it. And they're already ready for, I know what I could do better next time, and here's what it is, or this is what I saw that was really great, but I know I need to work on this. And so that's been fantastic. And so it came with just practice and consistency and doing it over and over and over again, and helping people enough times that they know that you are there to help them and get better, and they see results based on your guidance.
Yeah.
I'll add to that. I would say just consistency. And then I also think that alignment piece and having that common language. And so I think as our district builds a common language around instructional practices and campuses are doing the same and they're aligned, then the conversations that we have with teachers, it does get into that when we are talking, it's what does it look like, sound like, but everybody's on the same page. And if not, we know to bring that up, right? What does it look like and sound like? So that's something that I would say has been a good thing.
Yeah. Anything else to that point?
And Kia, what I would add, and this is our first year, but I know that my lead teachers have, like, we've reflected this week because we had a PLD and we had a coaching session with Alejandra, and it was just like how they've grown even from the beginning to now has been amazing, and the impact. And because we're such a large district and we don't have a lead per campus, but the impact that they're doing at each of the campuses has been amazing. Like I said, ideally we would love this and the impact would be just so much greater, but we're still making a positive impact. And it's just, now we have to work towards what Dana said, that alignment across, and that same vocabulary across our strategists and our leads, so that we all are talking the same language. But even as the first year, we've seen an impact. We've seen I've grown as a project coach, and my lead teachers have grown tremendously, and they're only going to continue to grow as they continue to do those coaching sessions.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much, Nora.
And to piggyback off that, this year I've implemented teacher reflection. So like I reflect myself, but I have the teachers now reflect as kind of the check-in to say, how did it go this week? What was the impact of you, but also your students? And so that I want to keep that up next year, because that seems to be helping, because they can see the work that they've done and the accomplishments throughout our time together.
Love that. Thank you, Susan. All right, so I want to start to transition us into kind of a final activity. So if you did not share something that's working or how you're supporting implementation, or pose a question, please feel free to drop that into the chat. We'll make sure we save that so that we can compile some high leverage action steps for implementation and support, and also make sure we come back to any questions that might be lingering in the group. Thank you, Christina. Oh, not quite yet. And so the last thing that I'd like for you to share in the chat is just, as you think, we've had a lot of informal conversations today, though, around things that are working. I think we've heard some really clear trends around the importance of being vulnerable, being visible and present, around giving teachers agency, around establishing those authentic and meaningful relationships, carving out the time and making sure that it's sacred by way of our calendar. When you think about resistant teachers, what does it look like to actually give them even more agency or be intentional about building that buy-in? And the opportunity and the importance of just like reflection, right? Both for you all as coaches in your practice, providing feedback, taking that feedback and applying it, but also creating space and time for the teachers that you're supporting, the educators that you're supporting to reflect as well. I think there's a lot of great stuff that came up here. Would love for you all to share in the chat, just like a final takeaway that you could actually translate into something actionable. So what's something that was discussed or brought up or shared here today that is going to impact your practice tomorrow or next week? So take a minute to think on that and then just drop that into the chat. What's an actionable takeaway for you? Tara said scheduling deliverables, both hers and teachers, on her calendar and inviting the teacher. I love that. Highly accountable, creating that culture. I encourage you to also just think about, like, what does it look like to hold yourself accountable to doing that? So Tara, like, what is going to have to happen in terms of your practice, or what behavior shifts might you have to make sure that you're able to do that regularly? Dropping into the chat, what is one actionable takeaway for you? Leaving positive notes immediately after an observation. Thanks, Christina. Positive notes to teachers, scheduling meetings on the same day every week, so having something that you can anticipate and predict. More positive notes, building consistency. Keep them coming. Being present, scheduling visit and feedback on the same day. Yes, I'm going to reduce that lag time for sure. All right, so a couple of now what next steps. So we're doing what we're taking away today. What are we going to put into practice? You all are going to be receiving a topic of interest survey and a feedback survey very shortly following this meeting. And so please complete that, because that allows us to understand from you what are the, we've talked so much today about agency and co-creating, right? And so we are trying to also model that in how we structure these sessions, and that we want your feedback around what are the topics that are going to be of high interest to you and that are going to support your work and your craft as coaches. Our next meeting is May 16th at 12:30, from 12:30 to 2. So please save that date, mark it on your calendar, invite your coaching friends. And that's all that we have. I can't just stress enough how much we appreciate your space and time today, your energy, leaning into these conversations, being flexible with us not being able to kind of break it up into breakout rooms. But I just really appreciate that you all were here and that you were so actively engaged in the conversation. Chris, I don't know if you have any final.
No, Kia, thank you very much for facilitating our conversation today. You did a fantastic job in pivoting when the breakout sessions were not running smoothly. So thank you very much. And to everybody, thank you for, the continuous work within, what we would say is the grant, but, just the best practices, coaching, and the relentless effort to make sure that you're supporting all of your educators and leaders. We're seeing it across our network. You are making some major gains. And I'm looking forward to, I want to put a little plug in, Lisa, Lorena, Nora, I will see you next week. So very excited to get to see you all in person and, walk around some of your buildings. And I'll plug for Kim. Kim's going to be in Gainesville.
Be in Gainesville. Kia, thank you so much.
You're so welcome. You got to watch out, Dana and Kim. Now you got to watch out.
Trouble's coming to town. That's right.
All right. Well, if no one else has any lingering questions or thoughts, again, thank you all so much. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day today and a wonderful weekend, and very much look forward to being back here with you all next time.
Bye, everybody.
Bye. Thank y'all.